I'm Mandy.
And I'm Jessica.
And this is The Coop.
You're listening to the Coop Homeschool Podcast.
This is your podcast for community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling.
This is episode 1, The Overwhelm. Hi, welcome. This is our first podcast episode, and we're so excited. We get to be together and film it together.
Oh.
So we thought we would start with a little scoop on the Coop. This week, my daughter and I got haircuts, and I had forgotten how marvelous it is to not only get out, but then to get out and get freshened up and spend that time with my daughter and enjoy a nice haircut for summer.
Well, and then they massage your hair, your head.
Yeah.
That's the best. That's why I go.
Yes, the ultimate self-care.
Yeah, totally. Well, I had the best time with you the other day at dinner when, especially when the girls were belting it out and singing their Why You Gotta Be So Rude song together.
Yeah.
That was super cute and super fun. And now we're going to be planning a road trip together. So how awesome is that?
I know. A lot of good things came out of having dinner with our families.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk today about something that I hear from basically every parent, and especially every homeschooler, is the word overwhelm.
Yes.
So I would love to hear, because you got it pretty much handled, girl, with between being a dance teacher and having 20 kids, 23-year-olds or 25-year-olds in a class, like you know how to handle like overwhelming situations. So, but I'd love to hear how you've been overwhelmed in your homeschooling or just life as a parent.
Yeah, I think that I found a groove with the teaching and the 3-year-olds and herding the cats, so to speak. So that not much there overwhelms me. And homeschooling, even though I knew I was always going to homeschool, I think once my daughter was old enough for kindergarten, I got really overwhelmed with the idea of how to best serve her. If she wants to do this in life, if she wants to pursue being a paleontologist, is my homeschooling going to get her there?
Right.
Or am I going to be doing her a disservice? And so to me, that was my biggest overwhelm, was managing the reasons I wanted to homeschool with the ideas of a more traditional education and making sure I prepared her for whatever it is she wants to choose.
Well, because you know that traditional education does check off the boxes.
Right.
That certain vocations require.
Yes.
And so that's just kind of an easy, follow through for that.
Right.
So then when you bring them home for homeschooling, it's like, oh my goodness, are we going to be able to check off all the boxes that are required for them to...
Right.
Totally. I totally know how you feel.
Exactly. And I'm such an unschooler by nature. I don't want a curriculum. I didn't want to push to read. I didn't want to be measuring or checking boxes. I just wanted her to pursue the interest she had and let learning be natural. But the problem with that, and also feeling the overwhelm and the pressure of getting her prepared for her choices in the future, was just really tough. And then it just took me a while to reconcile that in myself.
How did you reconcile it? Like, I still struggle with that. Like, are they doing what they need to do? Like, do I need to introduce this curriculum, or do I need to do this right now to make sure their brain develops in the way that it needs to develop for 5 years from now?
Exactly. I think once I got started, and I started her in a homeschool charter program at 4.5, and I used it as my trial and error year. So I bought some curriculum, and then I kind of just tested the waters. And I found that I was way more comfortable than I thought I was going to be. I settled into my more unschooling, light curriculum method than I anticipated. I'm a worrier, so I think the overwhelm was just from myself. I didn't really care what other people said because I already felt so strongly about homeschooling.
Right. Oh, right.
So it wasn't even the noise from other people. It was literally just, am I going to be getting my child where she wants to be in the future? Is she going to look back and be thankful that I homeschooled her, or is she going to feel like she missed opportunities? And so I think once we got started, I realized that we were checking the boxes without even knowing it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love it when that happens. It feels so
Exactly.
good.
Yes, and it's just, it's a very relieving and very fulfilling even, because you've realized that what you're doing is working for that child.
In a natural way, in an organic, natural way that goes with their interests and their ebbs and flows.
Exactly.
I think it was helpful too, because since I signed up for the same program as you, seeing other homeschooling parents there doing very similar things with very similar goals.
Sure. Yeah, that's the nice thing. And I know we say this a lot, but community really is so important, because you meet people who homeschool all different ways. So you find your classical homeschoolers, and you know, they really find that support group necessary because they're on a slightly more rigorous path than someone like me who's like, oh, she'll read when she reads.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's nice to
and
also
now
talk
she's
to
a
those
writer.
people. Yeah, and now she's writing her own book, and she's 8 years old. So, you know, she just got there on her own, which is what I actually felt most compelled to. And like I said, it's just a reconciling process, and then reconciling what you are seeing and observing in your child against what you're worried about is really helpful, you know.
Yeah, it's just so validating.
Yes.
You know, like, okay, I followed my conviction.
Yes.
And now I can see the fruit of that, even if it's just a couple years later. Because like you mentioned earlier, she went into first grade not reading.
Yeah.
And that, to like an average setting, would be very concerning.
Sure.
But to you, you knew, well, she'll read eventually.
Yeah.
You knew she had the tools. She could do it if she wanted to.
Right.
And then now, like, reading some of the things that she's written, it's adorable.
Yeah.
She knows how to use all the punctuation.
Yeah.
And without you having to make her read with tears and and write these things down.
We didn't have to open a grammar book for her to naturally build sentences that make sense, and complex sentences.
Totally.
I mean, I read it and I'm shocked.
I know. Well, I was reading it and I was just like, this is the cutest. And like her name, she's a first and last name for the, you know, you probably never, you know, told her when you develop a character, give them a first and last name. She just naturally knew to do that from all the reading that she's done. And
and I think it just came to me now, but I think another big thing is I'm just naturally a researcher. Yeah. And so that was another way to reconcile my worry against realities, you know, was researching and understanding what normal development is, and that it's a range. And I've used this analogy to you before, but everything's a range, and each developmental domain, you know, just social emotional development or cognitive development, they're all on their own scale. So you might be really high here and low there, and that once I came to terms with that, it became a lot easier for me, because I'm like, oh, she's really high performing here and she's not as high here, but that's okay.
Right.
At some point she'll be much more balanced, and it doesn't need to develop during a certain period of, or you know, it doesn't need to be measured by a certain period of time. Right. You know, we've got 10 more years before we find a balance. Right.
Well, and you've just seen evidence of that and other things that you've been concerned about slightly, and then she caught up. Or not even caught up.
Right. I know. We always get caught in those words, the trap
she
of
just
words.
Progressed a whole bunch all at once, and then you could relax about that.
Right, yeah, because like you said, she went into first grade at a pre-reading level, and then by the end of the year, by the end of first grade, her tested level was up in the end of third grade year. So she had jumped far. She was reading books. She was excited to read. And she just
even
did it
if
naturally.
not, even if she didn't test there, you were following your conviction. And so it's that, like, kind of separating from grade level and all that, keeping that in mind so we don't get overwhelmed.
Exactly.
But then just feeling the validation of seeing progress, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I love that. And it's like comforting for people like me to hear that too. Like, okay, like my kid, it might not be reading, let's say, but it might be something else. And so then I can use that same logic and that same, like, okay, I'll get that validation.
Yes.
I'll see that fruit later on.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to hear other people's stories.
Absolutely.
Totally.
I agray.
Okay, well, let's talk about me now.
Yeah. How are you overwhelmed in your homeschool?
Okay. So I have this little book that I'm hiding behind. Okay, since I never was homeschooled, and I thrived in traditional setting, and I love the traditional setting, and so, but once that was a decision, I still didn't know what that would look like, how that would look like, how do you even get started. And so it was overwhelming because I don't even know, what do I do?
Sure.
And then I was in St. Louis when a number of my friends were homeschooling because they were all like a decade older than me. And then we waited 9 years to have kids. So I got to see them do it, but then realizing, wait, it's different in every state. So then when we finally moved back to California, it was like, well, what do I do here? Do I need to, like, he's 4. What do I do? Like,
Right.
am I going to have him taken away from me because he's not in a
Right.
legit TK?
What are the laws? What
Yeah,
are your protections?
exactly.
Yeah, that's very overwhelming.
Yeah, it's scary. Yeah. So, I had a friend who she was a mentor when I was in college. I hadn't talked to her for like 1.5 decades or however long it was, over a decade. And I messaged her and I said, I know, through Facebook, I know you're homeschooling in California. What did you do?
Yes. Help me.
Tell me what to do. And she said, go to lots of conferences, homeschool conferences. So
Yes.
that was where I took that advice. And then she told me what the options were, the PSA,
Right.
a charter school.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, so I start going to conferences. And a number of people were like, well, I don't want to go to a conference with you because that's overwhelming to me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like they're like, I don't want to see all the options.
It's too much.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I have a master's of education. I have taught in a traditional school.
Right.
I had no idea all that was out there. I had no idea.
Right.
I didn't even know all the different theories because
Right.
there's one theory basically.
Right. The
when you
scope is
teach
narrow.
traditional. Yeah. Like, and you have to be that way. Like,
Yes.
if you're going to have 20 to 30 kids in a classroom, that is almost the only way to do it,
Sure.
almost. So, I go to the conference and I come back just like a light bulb. I mean, totally lit up, totally excited. And I don't feel overwhelmed at all. I feel like all it did
cool.
was like totally help me narrow my focus and
Yeah.
idea of what I need to do for second, third, and then I was like addicted.
That's
so then
awesome. Yeah.
I kept going, and I've taken a few years off now, but I can feel that loss of having my cup filled.
Sure.
Because it definitely fills your cup. When I was a teacher, we would go to every year
Yes.
to keep your credential. You go to these classes, these teacher conferences.
Sure.
And that always helped me, like, oh, this is how I'm going to do an 8-sentence paragraph this year, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And this is how I'm going to do diagramming sentences this year. So that would always fill my cup. So then to get to have that as a homeschool teacher and
Yes.
know how to get started before I actually had to was really great for mulling
Yeah.
over the exhibit hall. I spent hours and hours and hours in there.
Right. And how much money?
Oh, don't even.
Right.
There were a lot of calls to the hubby saying, you're okay if I spend $200 on this, right? And not that I need like permission, but you know, we're
Oh, sure. You're a
partnership.
team.
Yeah. So, and of course he was always like, whatever you need, whatever you need,
Right.
whatever you
Homeschool's
need.
always been supported, which is why I think we've meshed so well, our two families. Both of our husbands have been extremely supportive, and it's helped with the overwhelm for me.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes such a big impact to know
Yeah.
that they're behind you 150%, and then they take on it themselves. Like
Right.
seeing Jake at our co-op, we had an Easter Easter hunt, and then he taught the kids.
He took my role.
Yeah.
Because he's just such a natural, and he loves watching the kids and seeing how his child, well, we have 2 now, but how his children interact with the others. And so he just naturally took that on. And I was happy to. You know,
totally.
I teach for a job, and I homeschool the majority of the time. So for him to be engaged like that was
I
really
love it.
exciting.
Yeah, just to like bask
Mm-hmm.
in someone else's wonderful leadership and
Yeah.
wonderful education that they have
Right.
to offer our kids. And Marcus is the one now doing all the research for the read alouds. He's the
Right.
one saying, I'm gonna well, you're here right now. He says, oh, I'll do the Land of Stories and whatever that is. He's like, but there's some prep work we have to do. So
Right. He's
so,
preparing all
yeah,
of that.
so it's
Yeah.
really great. So that helps a lot too. The husband
Yeah.
helps a lot. And then the other thing that helped with that is my friend had 6 kids, and again, we don't have kids yet
Right.
at this point.
Right. When
And-
you were preparing to homeschool.
Yeah,
Right.
and I said I had the day off work, but she was still going to teach that day because we don't abide by any calendar
Sure.
whatsoever.
Right.
So I said, can I come and sit and watch you homeschool? So she said, sure. So she had set up her garage, like they had it all finished.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, and since she had 6 kids ages 9 and under.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she had to, for her sanity, she had to have like a traditional school setting.
Right.
So she had the desk lined up. I don't have that setting.
Yeah.
But if I had 6 kids,
Maybe
one
would.
of them being a baby, and she had one curriculum.
Okay.
And they all, it was an art history foundation.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, so that was the first time I saw that you could theme your curriculum on one topic, and she was really into art history.
Okay.
And then everything else fit within that
Sure.
boxed
It
curriculum.
was like a big unit study almost.
Yeah. But it was for the whole year, and they
How
sang this
cool.
song, and they are looking at these beautiful photos of let's say it was Da Vinci and whoever.
Just
that
things
take you-
they'll recognize everywhere.
Yeah, and there was a song that went through it, and all the kids sing the song, and then each kid had a different thing to do,
Okay.
and at different level.
How cool.
It was really cool, and to me, I was like,
Okay.
That's-
sold.
yeah, okay, if I'm gonna do like a setting where they each have their own desk, that's what I'm doing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that was her interest, and she was hoping to pass that on to her kids.
That's really cool.
And I learned a lot that day.
Yeah,
Let's just
I
say.
know. It's
Yeah.
amazing when it's presented in such a magical way, how you can really take in information in a way that is so different than a lecture style or,
Yeah, and
The
she was
focus
with
is
that
different.
charter school. She was on the C
Okay.
track that
Yeah.
our friends are part of. So, yeah, and the other thing is, I talked to my friend who was an elementary school teacher. So I taught junior high, so it's totally different. And I was telling her, like, I don't even know what I'll be doing and whatever. And she said, you know what? I've been through, like, until 3rd grade or through 3rd grade, you only need a sheet of paper and a writing utensil. And she taught regular elementary school.
traditional school,
Yeah.
3rd grade. Yeah.
So that made me feel, okay, released.
yeah.
I don't need, unless I want to, I don't need the borders going around the classroom.
Right.
I don't need all the posters
Right.
unless I want to. Like, I don't need all the curriculum unless I want to, unless it excites me, unless it sparks joy. So then once I started going to the conferences, I started seeing what sparked joy for me, what I was excited about, what I wanted to be involved in.
Sure.
So, yeah. And then this summer, we had talked about
Yeah.
going to a conference together, and that would have been really fun.
Yeah, we had it
Girls'
all booked.
night.
Yep. We had it all booked, and then the pandemic
Yeah.
happened.
Oh, yeah. And we were gonna maybe get a Duffy bow.
Yeah, we had a.
Celebrate your birthday.
Yeah, it was my birthday.
Yeah.
And it was a 1-day homeschooling
Yeah.
conference that we were so looking forward to. We had 2 other girlfriends coming with us, and then it got canceled, and that was pretty devastating for me. I've done, like you said, with your teaching, even with dance education, I've been to the conferences, which are so fun and inspiring. You come back
Totally.
with all these different ideas and feel refreshed. And so I was looking forward to that for homeschooling, especially now that my daughter's going into 3rd grade, and I kind of want to still maintain some of my unschoolingness.
Oh, definitely.
But
Yeah.
now want to make sure that she has some foundational work for what's to come for her.
Yeah.
She does love writing. So should I start looking into more for her? Or do
Oh,
I just
yeah.
keep encouraging what we're doing?
I know, that's what's so
Yeah.
hard. Like, that's those turning points are when it feels overwhelming.
It
It's
can.
the turning points.
Yeah, it definitely can. And I think that I've found enough of a balance now to feel confident that we're at least on the right track. If I'm not always doing the right thing,
Right.
I'm at least driving down the right road.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'll
I
get
love
there
that.
eventually.
Yeah.
Or, I'm not so married to any one method
Yeah.
or way
Right.
that I'm unwilling to figure it out. If she reached a roadblock and was trying to do more with her writing or something, then we definitely look into different ways of doing it. I'm not afraid to look. I'm not afraid to ask.
Right.
I'm not afraid to consult with other teachers and parents about different ideas. I know my child's way of learning well enough by now
Right.
that I know what to seek out for her. It's just that I
Right.
don't know what every curriculum has to offer.
I know. And since I have FOMO, and I've talked about this before,
Yes.
it's really hard for me to know there's all these curriculums out there because I actually love so many of them.
You see the merits in each one.
Yeah.
Each one has its own merit, but what it really boils down to, and you have 3 children, and so you have that challenge of one for all
I know. That's
or
what's
different
hard.
for each.
Yeah.
So my kids are 6 years apart, so that's
you'll
not
be able
something
to
I'm doing.
revisit it, and what a wealth of knowledge you can bring to the rest of us when you start exploring, especially those
Hope
with
so.
kids younger than your youngest.
Right.
Because then you can say, oh, I've tried now these 2 different ones at these 2 different stage, at these same stage. And
yeah, my children seem very different in learning styles. Very different in how they take in information.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely curious to see how that works. You know, my little guy, he's 2.5, and he is such an experimenter already.
Yeah.
He wants to figure it out. He wants to. So my oldest, my 8-year-old, didn't care.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I can't figure it out right now. I'll move
Moving on.
Yeah. And so it's just
I'm
very
over
different.
it.
Yeah, it's just different, you know. So I learned quickly not to push her, because that wasn't how to motivate learning.
Right.
She was just motivated through natural interests,
Right.
primarily. My little guy, I think he's definitely going to be more motivated in accomplishing. He's gonna like checking boxes,
Yeah,
like I
totally.
naturally am more inclined
That'll
to
be
do.
nice for you.
Yeah. So he might need a little more structure, but again, I'm not trying to predict it. I'm not trying to create a road for him yet.
Right.
I'm just taking in the information he's giving me and figuring it out as we go, and you know, it's one day at a time, really.
That's what's nice when you're an observer.
Right. I'm naturally an observer as well, so it's really easy for me to just be able to sit back and let them do their thing while I take in, you know, little details about how they're learning, how they're playing with their toys, or what they gravitate towards. And
yeah, I love that.
Homeschooling gives me the time.
Yeah. I have a hard time sitting still for stuff like that. So it's always inspiring to me when I hear other people doing it. Because I was like, oh, yeah.
That might
I
be
could
the
totally
FOMO.
do that. It's the FOMO. It's the FOMO. I'm like, wait, this is going to be so much fun if we do this. Yeah.
Yeah. So
let's talk about
joys.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So I had a couple of great moments of joy this week, but the one I really wanted to share today is watching my little guy at the trampoline park.
Oh, so
We
cute.
went today, and it's been closed for almost 4 months. And I didn't know what to expect. 4 months for a 2.5-year-old's a long time.
It is, yeah.
And I didn't know what he would do. And he's like me. He's the observer. So we get there, and for almost, 45 minutes?
Yeah.
He's just watching.
So cute.
Just watching. Mostly the big kids, but really observing the kids his age, because he's kind of the youngest of the kids he hangs out with all the time.
Well, and I loved that you let him observe. Like, for me, I'm like, go, look at how much fun they're having. Like, come on, you know. And it's just a good reminder to me, like, it's just as much fun to observe, because I'm a participator. I'm like, the MacArthurs participate. That's who we are.
Right.
And it's like, you know, sometimes it's more fun to sit and observe.
It can be, and because I'm that person naturally, and to be fair, I've sat through things that I've gone and said I probably should have.
Well, yeah, there's a spectrum for everything. Yeah.
But he spent maybe it was only 30 minutes, but it was a while. He didn't touch the trampolines. He just was kind of walking back and forth, and then he finally was ready in his own time, in his own way.
I know, it's so cute.
And his balance was so good. I was just so impressed. Like, they just changed so rapidly, and you know, sometimes you just miss it.
Yeah, totally.
You know, they just changed like that. But because we hadn't been to a trampoline park in 4 months, the difference was crazy. He didn't even need me to jump with him.
I know, that's your first time.
Yeah.
We got to have conversation.
For the most part. Until the kids all wanted to be on different sides of the trampoline park. But that was a really joyful experience for me. It's just to bask in his growth and change, and to see that he's not my little tiny baby.
I liked seeing those little orange socks like waddle around.
Yeah.
That was really cute how he walks, and
His little
I was
feet.
observing, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
I can observe other people's kids. Just my own, I'm like, what are you doing? Go play.
I already saw you.
Yeah. So for me, my 5-year-old is learning handwriting.
Yes.
So she took a long break. She took about 3 to 4 months break.
Right.
So, and I had a little requirement that she had to connect letters for Micah to teach her to read. So my older son is going to teach my 5-year-old to read. And he's super excited about it. And I knew he would get such a sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
And that'll be something he can say later on. I taught my kid sister to read. So, but I want it to be easy for him too. I don't want it to be a struggle. So part of that is being able to connect your letters when you're teaching them this curriculum we do, which is super easy for someone to teach. That's why my 10-year-old can do it. So, and she wouldn't do it. She would not connect the letters. She would not connect the letters. And all of a sudden, I'll just summarize in that way. All of a sudden, she started connecting them.
Yeah.
And doing the whole alphabet connected in cursive.
Aww.
And when we were celebrating my father-in-law's birthday last night, that was what was inside her card. Was just the whole alphabet connected.
No happy birthday.
Nothing.
Just A to Z.
Normally she draws a picture holding a hand, you know, with somebody,
yeah.
you know, with the person, with a rainbow.
Right.
This time it was just the alphabet.
It was her huge accomplishment.
I know. She was so proud to share it. It was
That's sweet.
so cute. So that was just a moment of joy for me that she wanted to share that with her grandpa. So,
That's very special.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, there you have it.
Yep. This was our first episode of the Coop podcast. So we hope you enjoyed it. And
I enjoyed it.
I did too. I know. And tune in next time. We've got a homeschool fail for you.
Oh, yeah.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all love hearing those. It makes us feel better about
Yeah,
ourselves.
it makes us all realize we're in it together and we're all just
Totally.
real moms with our own problems trying to work it out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.